The hidden secrets of history's wisest individuals. It feels like we're living in an age of noise, doesn't it? A constant, deafening roar of information. Every second, we're hit with a wave of opinions, hot takes, life hacks, and distractions, all screaming for our attention. Our digital world is a chaotic storm of voices, each one trying to be louder than the last, each one claiming to have the answer. In this overwhelming flood, have you ever stopped and asked yourself, who actually has something important to say, and who is just making noise because they feel like they have to? This exact question gets to the heart of something the Greek philosopher Plato pointed out over 2,000 years ago. He said, "Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something." That single sentence cuts right through the chaos of our modern lives. It draws a clear line between words with meaning and empty chatter, between true wisdom and just acting wise. So, what if we could quiet the noise? What if we could tune out the endless stream of people talking just to fill the silence, and instead listen to the voices of the truly wise? This isn't just a history lesson. The secrets of these ancient minds aren't dusty relics for a museum. Think of them as timeless tools, a compass for navigating the chaos we all face today. Their wisdom can help you find clarity, shield you from manipulation, and give you a blueprint for a life with purpose. Today, we're going to journey back to the cradle of Western philosophy, to the bustling streets of ancient Athens. We'll uncover the forgotten secrets of three of the most influential thinkers in history, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. We're going to walk with them, listen to their arguments, and decode their wisdom to understand not just how they navigated their own turbulent times, but what their incredible insights mean for you, right here, right now. Socrates, the wisdom of knowing nothing. Our journey starts with a man who, by all accounts, was an unlikely person to change the world, Socrates. He lived during the golden age of Athens, a time of incredible art, democracy, and new ideas. Yet Socrates never wrote a single word down. He didn't have a fancy title. He wasn't rich, and people said he wasn't much to look at, short and stout, with bulging eyes and a snub nose. But Socrates had something powerful, a relentless mission to find the truth. He spent his days in the agora, the public heart of Athens, talking to anyone and everyone, politicians, poets, craftsmen. He didn't lecture, he just asked questions, probing, uncomfortable, and deeply insightful questions. He became known as the gadfly of Athens, a persistent pest who buzzed around, stinging people out of their lazy thinking and moral complacency. The secret to his wisdom started with a riddle from a divine source. His friend went to the oracle at Delphi, the most sacred place in ancient Greece, and asked the priestess, "Is anyone wiser than Socrates?" The oracle's answer was clear: no one is wiser. When Socrates heard this, he was completely baffled. How could he be the wisest man in Athens? He was more aware of his own limitations than anyone. "I know that I know nothing," he famously said. This wasn't him being falsely modest. It was a deep, philosophical belief. He felt he had no final answers to life's big questions. What is justice? What is beauty? What is goodness? So, convinced the oracle had to be wrong, he set off on a mission to find someone wiser than himself. He went to a politician known for his wisdom. Through a series of sharp questions, Socrates revealed that while the man was a great speaker, his understanding of true virtue was shallow. The politician only thought he was wise. Next, Socrates talked to the great poets. He found that they created beautiful art, but couldn't explain the meaning behind it. They spoke from inspiration, not real understanding. Finally, he went to the craftsmen. They certainly had knowledge, they knew how to build things, But this skill in one area led them to believe they were wise in all other matters, and they weren't. After years of this, the oracle's message finally clicked. His wisdom wasn't in having all the answers. It was in being completely, totally aware of his own ignorance. While others pretended to know things they didn't, Socrates was the only one honest enough to admit he knew nothing. And in that humility, in that honest acceptance of how much he didn't know, was the seed of true wisdom. This is the first hidden secret. True wisdom begins with intellectual humility. In a world where everyone seems to be an expert, the Socratic approach is revolutionary. It's the courage to say, "I don't know," and to see that as the starting point for real discovery, not a failure. This whole quest gave birth to his greatest legacy, the Socratic method. It's a way of having a conversation where you search for truth together. Socrates would take a statement someone believed was true, like, "Courage is never running from a battle," and test it. He'd ask, "What about a strategic retreat to lure an enemy into a trap? Is that cowardice or a different kind of courage?" Through this disciplined questioning, he helped people see the cracks in their own thinking. The goal wasn't to win or humiliate them. It was to clear away the clutter of false beliefs, to get closer to the truth. This method is more relevant today than ever. We're constantly pressured to pick a side and adopt an entire ideology without questioning it. The Socratic method is the perfect antidote. It teaches us to question our own assumptions and to talk with others, not to defeat them, but to understand. But being the state's gadfly came at a cost. The powerful men Socrates exposed didn't thank him. They grew to hate him. At age 70, his search for truth led him to a courtroom where he was put on trial for his life, charged with disrespecting the gods and corrupting the youth. His defense is one of the most powerful speeches in history. He didn't beg for his life or apologize. Instead, he doubled down. He told the jury he was a gift from the gods, sent to wake them up. He argued that his questioning didn't corrupt the youth. It taught them the importance of virtue and self-examination. And then, he said the words that would echo for centuries: "The unexamined life is not worth living." For Socrates, a life lived on autopilot, driven by unthinking habits and beliefs, wasn't a real life for a human being. He believed our very purpose is to use our reason to examine our lives, our values, and our world. He was given a choice: give up his philosophy and walk free, or stand by his principles and be sentenced to death. He chose death. He calmly accepted the verdict and drank the poison hemlock, surrounded by his weeping friends. His death wasn't a defeat, it was the ultimate proof of his philosophy. He showed that his commitment to truth was more important than life itself. He truly had something to say, and he said it with his final breath. Plato, seeing beyond the shadows. The execution of Socrates was a devastating event for Athens. For one young man, it was a personal and philosophical earthquake. That man was Plato, Socrates' most dedicated student. He had watched his mentor, the wisest and most just man he knew, be condemned to death by a popular vote. This trauma left Plato with a deep distrust of mob rule and the belief that the world we see with our eyes is often a poor imitation of the truth. Haunted by his teacher's fate, Plato left Athens. He traveled for more than 10 years, studying math, geometry, and mysticism. When he returned, he founded a school, the Academy. It was the very first university in the Western world, a place where brilliant minds could gather to chase knowledge for its own sake. It was here that Plato developed his most famous idea, the theory of forms. This was his answer to a huge question. In a world where everything is always changing, where can we find anything that is true and permanent? Think about the idea of a perfect circle. You've seen thousands of circles in your life, but none of them were truly perfect. They were all just imperfect copies. Yet, you have an idea in your mind of what a perfect circle is. So, where does that perfect idea exist if you've never actually seen one? For Plato, that perfect circle exists in a higher, non-physical reality. This is the world of the forms. This higher world contains the perfect, eternal blueprints for everything we see in our physical world. There's a perfect form of a circle, a perfect form of a tree, and most importantly, perfect forms of big ideas like justice, beauty, and goodness. The world we live in, the world we see and touch, is just a world of imperfect copies, like fleeting shadows of that truer reality. To explain this, Plato created one of the most powerful analogies ever, the allegory of the cave. Imagine a group of people who have lived their entire lives chained inside a dark cave. They can only face a flat wall. Behind them, a fire burns, and people walk by carrying puppets. The fire casts shadows of those puppets onto the wall. For these prisoners, the shadows are reality. It's all they've ever known. They name the shadows, talk about them, and believe those flickering images are the entire world. Now, Plato asks, what would happen if one prisoner was freed? He'd be forced to turn and see the fire, and the light would hurt his eyes. He'd want to turn back to the familiar comfort of the shadows. If someone told him that the objects he now sees are more real than the shadows, he wouldn't believe it. Imagine this prisoner is then dragged out of the cave into the sunlight. The light would be blinding. At first, he could only look at shadows on the ground, then reflections in the water. Slowly, his eyes would adjust until he could see the trees, the animals, and the mountains. Finally, he would be able to look at the sun itself. He would realize the sun is the source of all light and life, and that his old life in the cave was just an illusion. This story is a map of our own lives. The cave is our everyday world. We are the prisoners, trapped by our limited perceptions. The shadows are the superficial things we mistake for truth, the headlines, the trends, the popular opinions. The freed prisoner is the philosopher, the person who loves wisdom on their difficult journey to enlightenment. The journey out of the cave is education, questioning what we see to find a deeper understanding. And the sun? The sun is the ultimate form of the good. It is the source of all truth and reality. This leads us to Plato's second hidden secret. To find truth, you have to be willing to leave the cave of your own assumptions and face the difficult journey into the light. Wisdom isn't always comfortable. It demands that we question the very things we believe are real and recognize that our perception of the world isn't the world itself, but just a shadow of it. But the story doesn't end there. The enlightened prisoner feels a duty to go back into the cave to free the others. But when he returns, his eyes, now used to the light, can't see in the dark. He stumbles around, trying to explain the world outside. He tells the other prisoners that the shadows they love are just cheap imitations, but they don't get it. They laugh at him. And if he tried to set them free, Plato says, they might even try to kill him. This is a tragic nod to what happened to Socrates. It's also a deep insight into leadership. Who is really fit to lead? According to Plato, it's the one who has left the cave, the philosopher. The ideal ruler isn't someone who craves power. In fact, they would rather spend their time thinking about truth and beauty. But because they know what is truly good for everyone, they accept the duty to go back into the darkness to guide others. True leadership is a responsibility born from wisdom, not an ambition born from ego. Aristotle, finding happiness in balance. In Plato's academy, one student stood out. For 20 years, he absorbed everything his master taught, but he had a spirit that would eventually lead him down his own path. His name was Aristotle. If Socrates was the great questioner and Plato was the idealist who looked to another world, Aristotle was the great organizer whose feet were planted firmly on the earth. While Plato searched for truth in an abstract realm, Aristotle believed reality was right here in front of us, in the world we can see, touch, and understand. He was the father of science, a man with a boundless curiosity. He wrote about everything: logic, biology, physics, ethics, politics, and art. For centuries, people just called him the philosopher. After leaving the academy, Aristotle was invited by the king of Macedon to tutor his 3-year-old son, a boy who would become Alexander the Great. Imagine the conversations between the philosopher who wanted to understand the world and the prince who wanted to conquer it. Later, Aristotle returned to Athens and started his own school, the Lyceum, where he and his students would walk and talk philosophy. From Aristotle we get our third hidden secret, a piece of practical wisdom that we can apply directly to our own lives. He asked one central question: what is the ultimate purpose of human life? His answer was a single Greek word: eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is often translated as happiness, but it's much deeper than that. It isn't the fleeting pleasure of a good meal. It means human flourishing, living well and doing well. It's a sustained state of being that comes from living a life of true excellence. So how do we get there? Aristotle's answer is both simple and challenging. We achieve eudaimonia by living a life of virtue, guided by reason. And the key to virtue, he said, is finding the middle ground between two extremes. This is his famous golden mean. For Aristotle, every virtue is a balanced point between two vices, one of having too much and one of having too little. For example, think about courage. On one side, you have cowardice, too little. On the other, you have recklessness, too much. A truly courageous person isn't someone who feels no fear. That's a fool. The courageous person feels the right amount of fear, but does the right thing anyway, finding the golden mean between the two extremes. Let's take generosity. The person with too little is stingy. The person with too much is wasteful, giving things away without thought. The virtuous person finds the mean, giving the right amount to the right people at the right time. The same logic applies to everything. Confidence is the mean between self-doubt and arrogance. Wit is the mean between being a buffoon and being a bore. This is the genius of Aristotle's third secret. A flourishing life is a balanced life, found by using reason to choose the middle way. This isn't a call for mediocrity. The mean is the peak, the summit of excellence. It's hard to find and requires practical wisdom, which Aristotle called phronesis. Phronesis is like moral street smarts. It's the ability to see a situation clearly and know what the right and virtuous response is. And here's the crucial part. Aristotle believed we aren't born good. We become good through practice and habit. He said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. You become brave by doing brave things. You become generous by practicing generosity. Moral virtue is like learning to play an instrument. At first, it's hard and takes conscious effort. But with practice, it becomes second nature. It becomes part of your character. A flourishing life isn't something you find. It's something you build, one good choice at a time. In our modern world of extremes, Aristotle's call for balance is more needed than ever. Our culture often celebrates excess, extreme opinions, extreme lifestyles. We're encouraged to be all in or all out. Aristotle's wisdom offers a powerful alternative. He teaches that the good life is found not at the wild edges of human experience, but in the deliberate, reasoned, and harmonious center. Conclusion. We started this journey feeling like we were drowning in noise, looking for a way to hear the whispers of real wisdom. We walked with giants to find out what they had to say. From Socrates, we learned our first secret. True wisdom starts with the humility to admit you don't have all the answers. He taught us that an unexamined life isn't really a life at all, pushing us to question everything, especially ourselves. From Plato, we learned our second secret. We have to look beyond the shadows of our daily lives to see the deeper truths. His allegory of the cave is a timeless challenge to begin the hard journey from ignorance to enlightenment. And from Aristotle, we learned our third secret. The good life, a flourishing life, is found in balance. He gave us the golden mean, a practical guide for building our character through reason and habit, one choice at a time. Socrates' humility, Plato's vision, and Aristotle's practicality aren't just old ideas. They are a powerful toolkit for modern living. They teach us how to think, how to see, and how to act. In a world that rewards loud certainty, Socrates asks for humble questions. In a world obsessed with the superficial, Plato asks us to look for what's real. And in a world that pulls us to extremes, Aristotle asks for reasoned balance. These are the hidden secrets of history's wisest individuals. They're not secret because they were locked away, but because they take effort to understand and courage to live by. They ask us to slow down, think deeply, and live with purpose. They offer a way to cut through the chaos and build a life that is not just successful, but truly good. If this journey into wisdom resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more. And now, we want to hear from you. Who do you think is the wisest person in history, and what is the greatest piece of wisdom they shared? Let us know in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.